What if I told you there's a cemetery in Jerusalem that's growing toward a gate that's been sealed for centuries? And what if this expansion might be connected to ancient prophecies that could change everything we know about the end times? Stay with me, because what's happening on the Mount of Olives right now has some people wondering if we're witnessing something truly incredible unfold. Picture this. You're standing on a hill overlooking Jerusalem, one of the most famous cities in human history. Below you stretches the Kidron Valley, and across from where you stand, you can see the Temple Mount with its golden dome catching the sunlight. But here's what catches your eye. There's a gate in the wall. The Eastern Gate. And it's been sealed shut for hundreds of years, just sitting there like it's waiting for something. Now, turn around and look at where you're standing. This is the Mount of Olives, and you're surrounded by thousands upon thousands of graves. It's actually the world's oldest Jewish cemetery, and here's the crazy part. It's getting bigger. The graves are creeping closer and closer to that sealed gate. Most people would say, well, that makes sense. Jerusalem needs more burial space. But others are asking a deeper question. Could this expansion be more than just practical? Could it actually be a sign that ancient prophecies are starting to come true? Before we dive deeper into this mystery, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell if you want to explore more connections between history, archaeology, and ancient predictions. Let's talk about why this mountain is so special. The Mount of Olives has been at the center of major historical events for over 3,000 years. King David cried here when he fled from his own son. The prophet Ezekiel had a vision here where he saw God's presence leave the temple and come to rest on this very mountain. But here's where it gets really interesting. This mountain was incredibly important to Jesus too. He spent his final days here, giving one of his most famous speeches about the end times. And it's the exact spot where Jesus went up into heaven after his resurrection, right in front of his followers. But the story doesn't end there. According to ancient prophecies, this same mountain is where Jesus is supposed to return. And that sealed Eastern Gate? That's supposedly the gate he'll enter through. So now you can see why some people are getting excited about these expanding graves. It's not just about burial space, to them. It feels like the stage is being set for something much bigger. For thousands of years, Jewish families have spent fortunes to bury their loved ones on the Mount of Olives. Why? Because of one powerful belief. When the Messiah arrives, the resurrection of the dead will start right here on this mountain. Imagine being buried at ground zero of the greatest miracle in human history. Today, there are roughly 150,000 graves covering these slopes. That's like a small city of the dead, stretching as far as you can see. Prophets, rabbis, and ordinary families all rest here together, their white limestone tombstones creating an endless sea of hope and expectation. Some graves are ancient, weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Others are brand new, their Hebrew inscriptions still sharp and clear. But here's what's got people talking. The cemetery keeps growing, expanding downward, getting closer and closer to that Eastern Gate. Every year, more families join this sacred waiting room, positioning their loved ones for what many believe will be the most important event in human history. Let's talk about this gate, because it's central to this whole story. The Eastern Gate faces directly toward the Mount of Olives and has been sealed shut with stones for hundreds of years. But this wasn't sealed by accident. It was deliberately blocked because of prophecy. Jewish tradition says the Messiah will enter Jerusalem through this exact gate. Early Muslim rulers knew about this prophecy, so in the 1500s, they ordered it sealed shut, thinking they could stop the prophecy from happening. They even built a cemetery in front of it, believing a holy person couldn't walk through a graveyard. The prophet Ezekiel actually wrote about this gate, saying it would be shut and no ordinary person would enter through it, because God himself had passed through it. But here's the key part. It will open again one day, but not by human effort. Here's something that'll give you chills. If you look at satellite images of the Mount of Olives today, the expanding cemetery looks like a river of white stone graves flowing down toward Jerusalem. And where does this river point? Straight at the Eastern Gate. It's almost like the graves themselves are moving toward the place where resurrection is promised to begin. Now, some people say this is just geography. The cemetery needs to expand somewhere. But others see something deeper, like prophecy being written in real stone, right before our eyes. Think about this. Jesus stood on this exact mountain and made specific predictions. He told his followers the temple would be completely destroyed. In 70 AD, the Romans did exactly that, tearing it down so completely that not one stone was left stacked on another. But Jesus also talked about signs that would happen much later: wars, earthquakes, false messiahs. Then he said, "Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory." His disciples asked, "When will this happen?" Jesus didn't give them a specific date. Instead, he told them to watch for signs and stay ready. Could this cemetery expansion be one of those signs? Here's where things get really wild. The prophet Zechariah wrote that when the Messiah returns, he will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the mountain will literally split in half from east to west, creating a massive valley. Picture this scene: Jesus coming back to the exact spot where he left, the ground shaking and splitting open, graves opening up, and that eastern gate finally swinging open after all these centuries. Not because someone unlocked it, but because of divine power. When you think about it that way, is it any surprise that families have spent fortunes to bury their loved ones on this mountain? Is it shocking that seeing graves creep closer to that gate makes people's hearts race? So what should we make of all this? Should we treat an expanding cemetery like some kind of prophetic countdown timer? Maybe, maybe not. But here's what I think we should remember. These ancient predictions aren't just old stories collecting dust in libraries. They're alive, and they might be playing out right now in the real world. The Mount of Olives seems to be whispering a message to anyone willing to listen: stay ready. Because just as surely as Jesus once walked these paths and taught from these slopes, the prophecies say he's coming back to this very mountain. What do you think? Are we seeing prophecy unfold in real time, or is this just an interesting coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story got you thinking, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more connections between ancient predictions and modern events. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.